I cannot ever tell you, express to you enough how much that you have done for me, how much you've pushed me, how much motivation you've given me, how much joy that I have experienced in my life as a result of. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of the W2 Prison Break Show. It's just going to be me this week. And before we get right into the topic, I just want to say thanks again for listening to the show and for the feedback that I receive from tons of people on a continual basis, that the show touched them in a certain way, or a certain story I told, or a guest that I brought on really helped them. So that type of feedback, I welcome it and thank you. All right, so as I said, no guest today. It's just going to be me, and I'm going to talk about my son today. The last week or so has been a pretty emotional week for me and my family. I'm going to get into that in a second here, but as many of you have heard who listen to the show, or if you're part of my real estate mastermind, you've heard me talk about my son. Like, my son is my why. You know, he's the reason, my family too, my wife as well, but mainly my son. Like, he was the reason why I decided he gave me the courage to quit being afraid, to chase my dreams, to go after what I always knew what was inside of me and take my shot. I thank him for that all the time. I probably don't thank him enough for that. I just want to talk to you about being a dad, right? It's one of the greatest gifts of my entire life. And why I have recently discovered, and I don't know why it took this long, is that my son is my hero. And I told him that last week, and I kind of put it out into the world last week. And I'll tell you what happened, right? Then last week at the time of this recording. So my son plays travel baseball, and we learned the news that he was not going to be invited to return to the team. It was pretty gut-wrenching. It was heartbreaking, and it was tough. It was a tough pill to swallow. I didn't think that there was a chance it was going to happen. I also kind of saw the writing on the wall, and I'm a little bit mad at myself for not trying to do something sooner to prevent it, because he loves the team and he loves the players. I mean, he's 11 years old, right? There's a lot of pressure playing travel baseball for any of you out there that have kids who play, travel, high competitive sports. It's a lot of pressure. A lot of pressure on the kids. The parents are giving pressure. The coaches are providing pressure. Well, we found out, the night before, and then my wife and I decided, let's let him sleep. Let's let him sleep. We'll tell him in the morning, because he had just left a tryout. He was trying out for another baseball team, and he had a great tryout. Like, he was super pumped, and he did so well, to the point where one of the coaches drove to our house afterwards and said, "Hey, Will had a great tryout. We want him on the team. You're going to get some offers." And we told him that. He was riding high, and he's like, "Yeah, and I'm going to, I'll probably just stick with my current team." And then an hour later, we find out he's not going to be on the team. So I just want to walk you through what happened here and the lessons that I learned, and the lessons that I want to share with you today, about being your best, regardless of circumstance, about, the ability to perform under pressure, under a heavy heart, living with integrity, I think was the other lesson that I learned too. And I hope I can get through this, because I'm just reliving last week. He woke up and we sat down on the floor. I sat down on the floor. I said, "Hey buddy, sit down." I just said to him, I said, "Hey, look, your coach, I talked to your coach last night, and you're not going to be invited to be back on the team next year." And I said, "I'm sorry. I don't have an answer as to why, and I'm just sorry." And then I just sat there. Me and my wife just sat there, and we watched him, right? He took it in, and, then he just lost it. Like, he just started crying, and it was really, really difficult to see that, and I didn't know what to do. Like, I was completely paralyzed. I just said, "Hey, look, man, I love you. I'm here for you. I've always got your back. We're going to get through this. And I'm sorry it happened." Like, that's all I could say. Like, I couldn't tell him anything else. And then we talked for a long time. He was on the floor. He was crying for a good hour, and it just sucked. it just sucked. It sucked for him. I was filled up with a lot of emotions. I was angry. I was hurt. I know that he was doubting himself. He wasn't feeling good about himself. And the rest of the day was super difficult. I had later, I think I put a post on Facebook, I did put a post on Facebook, and I said, this is one of the most difficult days in my parenting life. And the reality of it was one of the most difficult days in my life, period. My entire life, my parenting life, because I'm not prepared for this. There's no playbook for this, right? So after we talked about it, he says, I'm just going to go downstairs. I'm going to take my mind off it. I'm going to go, play some video games. I'm just going to, I'm going to be an 11-year-old kid is what I'm going to do. We said, okay. And me and my wife continued to talk about it. And here's the part that just really surprised me and shocked me. And here's the lesson that I learned is he had a game that night with the same team. They had potentially 2 games left to play for their league championship. And I said to Will, hey, look, you're probably going to get an offer from this other team, but let's go try out for this other team. You just never know. The game got delayed. It just worked out. I'm like, the fact that the game got delayed by rain, I'm like, we got to go to this other tryout. So we go there, we go to the tryout. I said to the coach, I said, hey, look, we're trying out. I told him what we were doing, and he said, okay. Well, Will didn't have his best tryout. And I think it was because he was feeling the pressure. He was doubting himself. He just wasn't having a great day. And he had a good tryout, but he didn't have his best tryout. And he was mad. He's getting in the car. The one's like, we got to go to the game. We're in the car. And he's like, this is why I don't like baseball. And this is why I'm no good. And, just doing all that. It just, just crushes me to hear that. And all I said to him was, I said, hey, look, man, you got an opportunity. You got to play. You got to play in the game. Okay. You have an opportunity to prove yourself or whatever statement you want to make. This isn't a revenge thing. It's just like whatever statement you want to make to the people who let you go ahead and do it. This is your chance. And he says, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to play. Again, he just found out that morning that he's not going to be on the team. He's got to go face the kids. He's got to go face the coaches. We got to face the parents. It was super awkward. Well, he has a decent game, right? And we play 6 innings in travel baseball, right? We play 6 innings. And we're down 6-5. The other team's beating us. We're down 6-5. It's our last ups. And I said to my wife, I was just watching the lineup order, and I said, this is going to come down to Will. He's going to be the last batter. I just know what's going to happen. And inevitably it did. So we're down 6-5, and we have a runner on second. We have a runner on third. It's 2 outs. Will's up to bat. My son's up to bat. And if he strikes out or he doesn't get a hit, the game's over. The season's over. They don't get to play in the championship game. And I just remember sitting there. It was an out-of-body experience. And I looked at my wife, and she was already crying before he even did anything. And I said to myself and whoever wanted to listen, I just said, give the kid a break. Give the kid a break. He deserves it, right? And there were 1 or 2 strikes, and he singled into right field, hit a screaming ground ball into right field, and 2 runs scored. We win the game 7-6. And it was the most incredible thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Will has this moment. He walks it off. The whole team's bum rushing him, congratulating him. My wife's crying. Like, I didn't even know how to react. I was just so grateful that he got to experience that. And he'll always have that moment. Like, he'll never, ever forget that. You'll never forget that. Even though he didn't make the team and he got cut from the team, he'll never forget that. He'll always have that moment. And I was as I was sitting there watching all of this happen, because I do that. I watch people. I try not to be in the moment. I'm like watching, right? And I just thought to myself, I'm like, after the day that he had, 11 years old, like the most devastating news that he could imagine. Because I remember when I got cut from one of my teams when I was a kid, I was like completely beside myself. I was inconsolable. He was very similar. To be able to go to the tryout, to have a bad tryout and still go to the game And under that immense amount of pressure, you would already have pressure regardless of whether or not you got cut from the team. Heavy heart, the pressure, you're cut from the team. And for him to be able to perform in that moment is just simply heroic. And it was one of the most inspiring things that I've ever witnessed in my entire life. And I told him after the game, and I was thinking it before I said it to him. I said, I have never been more proud of anyone in my entire life, ever. And I told him that. I said, what you just did is super inspiring. It's heroic. You're my hero, man. Because I don't know if I could do that. I don't think I could have done that day. I think I would have been too mad. I think I would have been too hateful and resentful, which are bad things to be, right? And I've since gotten over that, and I've let it go, because I can't sit here and preach to people to let stuff go and not live it. All right. And I have. Okay. And the coach and I have, we hugged it out, and, he might be listening, and I ain't mad at you, bro. I love you, but my son really taught me a lesson. I think he taught a lot of people a lesson that day. If he can be his best, regardless of the circumstance, then all of us should be our best, regardless of circumstance. It's a lot to learn from your kids. My kid continues to teach me valuable life lessons, and I've underestimated him for way too long. And I told him I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore, because I don't give him enough credit. I didn't give him enough credit. He's smart. He understands what's happening. Okay. He can read situations. We always say, oh, they're not mentally developed. They're not mature enough. Yes, they are. Got in the car, drove home. I said, how was that? He's like, man, Dad, that was so awesome. That was so awesome. I'll always have that. That was just so amazing that I got to experience that. Like, I'm just so excited, and just to hear him talk like that. And he took the game ball. He got the game ball. And he put it in on his trophy shelf, and he'll always have that. So I'm just so proud of him. And, it was just one of the greatest moments of my life. So I said in the beginning of the day, it's one of the worst days of my entire life, yet it's the best, right? And the universe set that up, right? If you don't believe in manifestation and the universe speaking to you, just listen to this story. Like, he's the last kid up. They made it to the championship game because he was able to fight and continue to fight and persevere. And that's what I learned, like perseverance, like resilience. There was I'm going to tell you another story about my son, a valuable lesson that he taught me. And this could be difficult for me too. I'm surprised I just got through that story, but I haven't talked to my father in over 5 years. We had a falling out, and as I was coming up ideas for the show, I'm like, it sucks that I don't get to talk to my father anymore. And maybe he listens to the show. And if you are listening, Dad, I just, I hope you're okay. And, the door's always open, and, I miss you and I love you. And, I hope you're still proud of me. It's hard not having my dad. It's hard. And that makes me want to be a better father to my son, because I just don't ever want him to feel that way. And I remember when I first told my son, God, he must have been 5 or 6 years old at the time. And I said to him, hey, look, your granddad, my dad, has just decided that he doesn't want to have a relationship with me anymore. We're probably not going to talk to him anymore. And it's sad. It sucks. I hate it. I'm mad. I'm angry. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. But I just want you to know something, buddy. No matter what you do in your life, no matter where you are, doesn't make any difference, the circumstance. I will never, ever, ever, ever turn my back on you. Ever. And he looked at me. He didn't say anything. He looked at me after I'm telling him all about my father and everything that I was going through at that time. It was a super emotional experience for me. Again, he's 5 years old, maybe 6. And he says to me, he says one thing to me. He's like, I'm sorry about your dad. And he hugged me. And that's all he did. That's all he did. And that's all I needed. That's it. He didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to do anything. He just said, I'm sorry about your dad. And he hugged me. And it was one of the most amazing moments of my entire life. This 6-year-old kid, 5-6-year-old kid, has the understanding of what I'm going through and knows exactly what I needed. Knows exactly what I needed in that exact moment. And he's done that so much for me over the 11, almost 12 years that I've had the privilege of knowing him. And buddy, I hope you hear this one day. I'm gonna listen to this podcast episode with you. I've done that before. And I just want you to know that you're just an amazing person. You're such a great human being. You have a kind heart. And I'm just so honored that I get to be your father. I cannot ever express to you enough how much that you have done for me, how much you've pushed me, how much motivation you've given me, how much joy that I have experienced in my life as a result of being your father. Now, I know that I'm not perfect, and I know that I've made mistakes, and I've said and done things that I've regretted, and you've given me the opportunity to make up for that. And I thank you for that as well. The lesson here is I want you to listen to your kids, the dads out there, even the moms out there. I want you to listen to your children. I want you to, they're watching you. They understand you. And I want you to look at the lessons that you can learn from them. Okay? Because I've given you 2 super valuable lessons. I've given you two stories that most people don't know about. I haven't shared these stories. And I know there's going to be more. And let me tell you something. I'm paying attention. I'm listening. And I'm not going to make that mistake again to where I shut his voice out, because I've done that. We do that as parents, right? So I hope this episode inspires you. And if you think somebody needs to hear it, please share it with them. Please share it with them. And I'm looking forward to next year, next baseball season. He got on another team, and we're ready to get to work. And we're cheering the team on. Like, we're still friends. Like, we're going to let all that stuff go. That's the other lesson, too. Is like, you got to let it go. Don't hang on to it. People deserve second chances. Do I agree with what happened? No, I don't. Okay? But I got to move on. And we all make mistakes. I've made many of them. And I've had second, third, fourth, fifth chances. So who am I to hold grudges? I'm not going to do that. No way. It's not the way I want to live. That's not the way I choose to live. That's not the way my son lives. And he taught me that. And we had a good chat yesterday when we were coming home from the game. By the way, they lost the championship game, unfortunately. But it was a great season. It's a great season, great memories. And, I hope this episode helped you. I appreciate you listening, and I hope everyone has a super, super excellent week.